Hello, Internet. Ben here with a mysterious space update of sorts. Um, Man, I mean, it's been a while since I did any video, and I don't really have anything specific to talk about new developments. I guess these recent months have really been more just like whatever comes to mind. I haven't had any huge plans like, well, I'm gonna redo the sector map. A long time ago, I had a plan to do the mouse-only mothership thing. I think I talked about. That's a big thing I should get back to, but I don't even know I thought about that. It's been an awful long time. Today, I'm going to add a new kind of terrain hazard, and I thought really less of an update, more of a let's program a thing. So I'm going to record me programming this thing, hoping that is interesting to some people. How is this crazy game made? Uh, so I guess I will show you. I've made a graphic already. Um, Fireball. Let's see what's going on. That looks a little weird. So these are, I don't know why they got grouped up like this. Okay. These are individual little fireballs that we're going to have spinning around, like Firesticks in Mario 1, right? Or I guess other Mario games have had them since. Um, so that's what I'm going to add. We already have the force fields that blink on and off, and those are one thing you have to think about, moving around. I thought it would be interesting if there was some other kind of hazard on the level. So, and if you want, let's talk about what's coming up in the next update, because this is, usually I do this in development. Because sometimes I'll copy paste these onto mysteriouspace.com, although it has been an awful long time. So, mainly I've added a new enemy, Tunneling Torus 2. So this is that little snaky guy that I'm wiggling my hands. You can't see. It's a little snaky guy who you can blast apart into little parts. I've made a new version of him that shoots bullets all over, and he also has a subroutine. So anyway, it's a faster, more horrifying snake. But new enemy, some little tweaks you can see. It's like, oh yeah, that was probably kind of rude to do to players, so let's not do that anymore. Some little weapon stuff, but I want to add more things to levels. The game has been lacking enemies for a long time. Like after you get to the mysterious source, I think you've basically encountered all the enemies you're going to encounter, and then they just start coming faster, but it pretty much plateaus. So there needs to be more things to kind of keep thrown at you in the last half of the game, and that's just been true for a very long time. So finally, we have a new enemy. I rejiggled I rejiggered when the enemies appear to kind of spread things out a little more, which will probably make the game a little easier, maybe. I mean, it wasn't that big of a change, honestly. I think it's going to be okay, but it's fine. If the game becomes a little easier or harder from update to update, that doesn't worry me. Anyway, let's go ahead and make this fireball stick thing. So I guess I'm counting this as a new enemy. I need to load that up. So this is mono game, which I think I've mentioned before. Fireball. So you just have to like load up all these graphics, and I always forget. Yeah, copy of newer. And I will load this up into the game. This is the boring part. I probably should have done this before. I thought about it. I mean, I made the graphic before because I thought, man, that'll be boring to watch me draw semi-random squares. So I thought maybe you wouldn't want to watch that. But now that I'm doing this, I'm like, oh man, maybe this is kind of boring too. So why I can't think and talk at the same time. It's thinking about two different things. So I need to go to sprite sheet ID. Yes, thank you. Let's find where it loads up. I don't know, mini Mincalan. Here we go. I can never remember where in the code all this stuff is. All right. Yeah, meteor, huh? Have you wondering why you haven't seen any meteors? It's because they haven't been implemented. All right, so let's do. This is fireball. It is 14 by 14 pixels, and this should be fireball. So I just have this a map, a dictionary of sprite sheet IDs to sprite sheets. Sprite sheet is also a class I made, but it basically just holds one of these textures. And it's like I don't know, I'm going to say these things, but if you're familiar with CSS and not other sorts of programming, I don't know. You've seen sprite sheets. I think a lot of people who play retro games especially are familiar with what a sprite sheet is. just a funny way to hold animations without actually animating things. I think the whale, there's some big enemies in Mysterious Space where I feel like I need to get away from sprites and more have parts that kind of move, because then we could do some more interesting things. Um, the closest thing we have to that right now is those snakes, those tunneling Tauruses. So, anyway, fireball, enemy fireball. I feel like I kind of group these up, but I mean, these are enemies, and these are more, enemies that are smart and chase you. Although, having said that, what's the homing missile doing here? They're kind of living or something, whereas these I feel like are more, I don't know. I've decided to split them up for arbitrary reasons. Alright, so we're loading up the fireball graphic. Good enough. Now we need to make the enemy. So the way that the whole game is set up, and if I've done any of these programming, or if you've watched any of my little previous programming videos, you probably know. So C# really wants you to use your folders to reflect namespaces. So, for example, Alien Deck. This is from a gambling game that I haven't finished yet. Something else I need to get back to. There's a lot of half-programmed things lying around. C# would say, oh, it's in the model folder, so that should be mysteriouspace.model or something. Namespaces, again, if you're not a programmer, it's not going to make a whole lot of sense. But anyway, I'm kind of violating what C# thinks you should do with folders. I use the folders to represent kind of the inheritance tree, so that's not true for this top level. It was supposed to be kind of like an MVC, model view controller, split up, but it's become a bit bananas. And the view in Mysterious Space is all over the place. Let's not talk about that because it's embarrassing. I mean, it's not quite. It's not like I always have a render method and an update method, and those are very separate. So yeah, no, I shouldn't say that. It's not embarrassing. I think it's pretty good. I'm sure there's a few places where things bleed a little more than they should, but I try really hard to keep the update logic and the render logic completely separate. And the more I'm saying that, the more I'm sure I've done that properly. But in terms of file, I guess what I'm thinking of is when you code in PHP with any kind of framework, they keep the files completely separate. Like the controller logic and the view logic are not even in the same directory. It's or folder or whatever you want to say. So anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. So here we have things. That's kind of one of my top level classes. It's the thing class that most, like anything that is drawn on a level inherits from. Items are not things. Yeah, it's kind of arbitrary, right? Don't worry about it. But anyway, creatures, which includes both players and enemies, as you can see here, but we want an enemy. So again, this is kind of the inheritance tree. You have thing, creature derives from thing, enemy derives from creature, and then each of these individual things derives from enemy. So we're going to want to make a new one. I'm trying to think if there's a current enemy that's similar. I don't think there really is, so I'll just make a new class. And this is going to be a oh man, usually my enemies have names, but again, this isn't really a we want a spinning fireball. It's possible. So I'm thinking, and see, this is what I'm talking about. C# is like, oh, you're in universe things creature enemy. No, I know, but I don't care about that. So enemy. So I might want to make other kinds of fireballs. Like maybe there's fireballs that just like shoot out. It could be a bullet, a type of, oh my god, it could be a type of bullet. But bullets are destroyed when they collide with you, whereas these fireballs will not be. Are these fireballs bullets or are they enemies? They shouldn't be destroyed. They won't have health. Yep, I think thinking of them as enemies is completely wrong. Like if you blow up everything on the string, nothing. You won't be able to shoot them down. Yeah, dude, fireballs are not enemies at all. I'm glad we've had this conversation. So fireballs are bullets. That's fine. So let's go ahead and move that. Where was that fireball? Fireball. Where did you go? What the hell? Spinning fireball. That's why I'm confused. All right. So this is a bullet. Oh my god, put it somewhere crazy. Okay, bullet. And I'll just say fireball, and I don't know. There's a debate I always have in my mind. So there's going to be different kind of movements. Again, maybe something just shoots these fireballs at you. Maybe some of them orbit around. They could orbit around you. Wouldn't that be cool? There's all kinds of possibilities. So do you make different classes, or do you just assign a variable? Like I could say int type equals, and 0 would represent they go in a straight line, 1 would represent that they are orbiting something, whatever. Or do I make them totally different classes? Mysterious spaces has a mix of approaches. That's probably appropriate. I don't know. I'm not going to do it right here. Let's see what's whining about. It wants a new thing. So really I should have copied like penetrating bullet. It does not collide with terrain. Okay, I didn't remember how that was coded. Apparently it's just a Boolean. Alright, all these things are fine. Lasts for 5 seconds. So these are going to last forever, and that's a different sort of thing. So most of these have a life that they, like a duration, so original life and life. I don't want this to ever run out. Is alive. On terrain collision. Okay, so I gotta think about this. So most bullets, they count down, and I think this is the thing that's called to see if they should be removed from the level. If the bullet isn't alive, add it to be removed, add it to be removed. Okay, so here's what we want to do. This is going to become a function. Oops. This is something, I keep noticing this. I feel like, I don't know, maybe virtual should be first. I'll put it here. I keep noticing a thing in C#. I'm not super used to these properties. I mean, I'm much more used to them than I used to be. These kind of properties, maybe it was my fault for putting logic in them. But you can have these properties where, you just have a getter and a setter. But I feel like inevitably what happens is I find out that I want it to become a function because I want to be able to override it. And I don't... Well, let's see a thing. I'm saying this. So I don't think you can... Let's see. Is it going to let me do that? Can you do a virtual... You can? You can do a virtual property? Okay. Okay. Okay, I mean, the things I was saying before, ignore them all. This is amazing. So, let me explain a little bit what I'm doing here. So, override is alive. Return true. You're always alive. And I want that to be on one line, because I'm a bad programmer. Okay, so the code looks at this is alive property to determine whether or not the bullet should be removed from the level. And the bullets can stop being alive, and this has to do with, again, kind of splitting out when different things happen. It needs to update the logic, and then the level decides what's going to get removed from the level. That doesn't happen quite as discreetly, actually. So I completely lied. It does it immediately. There's a lot of different possible ways that a bullet could be removed, and I need to make sure it doesn't matter. Honestly, those things would probably be thought out a little bit better. Let's be totally honest. Maybe it really should be there's one big update step, and then there is, and once again I'm waving my hands on the screen as if you can see it, and then one big remove all the things from the level. But things definitely need to be at least this separated. I wouldn't want two things to try and remove the same bullet at the same time, if that makes any sense. So like, say a bullet collides with a player, the bullet is going to know to remove itself, but maybe it has also collided with terrain or something like that. And so that's another instance where it would remove itself. And so rather than try and remove itself from the list of bullets multiple times, which again might be okay, I think there's places where this gets you into more trouble than I'm properly describing. But anyway, we set this property. Your life is now 0 bullets, so you should be removed. And it's this is alive property that checks that. I had no idea that you could make these virtual, and if you're not a programmer, then I'm saying words that make no goddamn sense to you, and I'm sorry. But the point is, it's great. So I didn't know. I've learned something today. I don't know why I didn't know that, because it's a problem. I keep saying, oh man, I'm going to have to turn it into a function because I want it to be virtual. Maybe an earlier version of C# it didn't, and that's what's been confusing me. That's also, it's possible that that's a lie as well, because these property things were added only kind of recently. See, I mean, it looks a lot like a function, but you have this whole like get thing. It's all very strange. Things like this I really like to just have on one line for, I don't know, just for scrolling through the code. If it only does one thing, I don't feel bad doing it. There's definitely things like this. I'm just gonna say it. A better programmer would put curly braces. I don't care. So I remove them around single statements. When you code with other people, there's things like that you should care more about. And so at work I sometimes care more. Um, Actually, at work I don't have to because everyone has worse coding style than I do. So it's okay. A couple of my coworkers don't even indent things properly, it drives me bananas, but I don't spend the time to correct it because that would be too much work. So anyway, yeah, I'm not going to feel too bad about my coding style is what I'm saying. So let's finish up. Have I done anything? No. I've been spending forever talking. This is what happens. If I was just sitting down doing it, I'd be further ahead, but that's okay. We're talking. This is fun, right? Is everyone having fun? I really hope so. So here's the bullet. It does its thing. Let's override the... Is there a move or an update? I think... See, this is a problem with these things. It's going to want to get moved around and pushed around. Slowed by liquids. It's not going to want to be... And then it starts to like move it around. Like all this stuff, all this normal stuff about how bullets behave is not what we don't want it to get dragged. We don't want the velocity, any sort of drag. Right? I mean, right. And this is all because it's a thing. Right. Bullets already override a lot of that. Except they don't. How interesting. They can get struck by lightning. Most bullets can't be grabbed. There's a lot of arguments why bullets should not even be in here, except for the velocity moving. Interesting. Well, that would be a thing to maybe fix another time. The game has come... It's funny, I don't know, there's parts of this code that I haven't looked at in a long time that I forget what I wrote, because it has been a long time. So, I think what we want to do, then, is say... Okay, so first of all, we don't care about anything. This is what we want to do. The fireball needs to know its radius, so it's not going to have an x and y velocity. These are both going to be 0 all the time. What it wants is a radius. That's how far. So this fireball, this is absolutely a spinning fireball now, right? Let's just go ahead and say this, yeah, because a lot of this logic is going to be specific to spinning. If it was a fireball that was shot, then all that stuff I was saying about, oh man, it gets moved, it can get, oh, it might be slowed in liquids, all those things would be true for a thrown fireball. And actually, when a thrown fireball hits liquid, it might be fair to make it go away. That could be exciting. But in this case, this is absolutely going to be a spinning ball. It has a radius around which it spins. It's also going to need a speed? I guess it is. And then we're going to set these things. So radius, radius equals radius, speed equals speed. And then what we're going to do is override x. So I realize that's messed up right now. Sorry, we'll look at the base x, location x. Okay, so we want its coordinates plus cosine of, we'll have to make a step thing, times math pi divided by 180, so we're turning radians into degrees, or rather, sorry, degrees into radians, and then multiply this by the radius, and then this needs to return an integer because we don't have fractional coordinates, at least not for x, which is used for calculating all things. Okay, so what I'm doing here, if it's not super clear, step equals 0. So every frame we're going to increase the angle, and that's what we should absolutely be calling this. It's not the step, it's the angle. This is something I need to rename to angle. It's angry at me. Why are you angry at me? I don't know. Angle. Okay, I shouldn't have tried to copy paste. Okay, so this is the angle. The angle is going to increase by the speed every turn. So what we're going to do is angle plus equals angle plus speed plus 360 mod 360. Okay, so this is a bit of nonsense. So mod 360, that's divide by 360, give me the remainder, right? That works great if you know you're always incrementing. So like suppose that we wanted to keep angle within 360, then we would say angle equals angle plus 1, and then mod that whole thing by 360, so that when we get to 360, then 360 mod 360 is 0. You divide by 360 and have a remainder of 0, so now you've wrapped around, right? This is a good way to make it wrap around. The other way I could do this, which would probably be more clear, I will show you angle plus speed, and then I would say if angle is greater than or equal to 360, then angle minus equals 360. That way, you know, if you're going in increments of 20 or 50 or some weird number, you don't want to just say equals 0, right? Because then you might do a weird thing at the end. You want to say minus equals 360. But I also need, if angle is less than 0, then we want angle to be plus equals 360, right? Because what if the speed is negative? What if we want our things to spin counterclockwise? What I have done instead of writing out 3 different lines, is we say, fine, angle equals angles plus speed, and we could mod this 360, because, again, the remainder. But if it's negative values, negative things do bad things with remainders. You end up screwing up all your values. So I'm going to add 360 to make sure that the negative is positive, or that the negative numbers are evaluated as positive. But because it's a mod 360, we can add 360, and it has no difference. If you know math, then this is intuitive, perhaps, once it's been pointed out. Especially with modulus is really weird. I feel like modulus never comes up in real life. It comes up all the time in programming. It is the most useful thing. Also, trigonometry, oh my god, it's amazing. When I learned trigonometry in high school, I was like, all my problems have been solved. Because I had always wanted to make things move in circles, and I did not know how. And then you learn trig, and then the world is a wonderful place. Trig is good. Everyone hates trig, and it's fair, because it's a pain in the ass, and you gotta remember old horses eating oats or whatever the hell. No one wants it, but and honestly, one great thing, so like I'm pretty sure cosine is what I need for my x and sine is what I need for my y. The great news is if I get it wrong, things don't move in circles. Like I could swap this and make this a sine and make this a cosine, and the circles will still happen. Sometimes that gets you into trouble though. It's best to know. And again, I'm pretty sure, but I do have that, like there is a little splinter of doubt in my mind that I've confused these because again, it works in most cases. But you know, if you're doing something important like controlling the player's movement, then you know you can't have, because what this does is will offset the angle by 90 degrees is what's going to happen if you get these wrong. And that's not bad if it's just a fireball spinning around a thing. Who cares if it's off by 90 degrees? No one's going to know. But if the player is trying to control their ship and their movement is off 90 degrees, they're going to notice. So you got to get your cosine and sine right. But for a lot of things, you can use them however. You know, just don't use the same one twice. That will make things move. I don't know how. Straight line? That's my prediction, but I could be totally wrong. Anyway, so this is good. So we're going to have a fireball. So this x and y thing, and this is something I did a long time ago because I knew I would want things like this. I might want things to move, but maybe they wiggle as they move or something. And so everything in the game asks something its position by asking this x and y function. You know, what's your x coordinate? What's your y coordinate? Fantastic. But I wanted it to be a function and not just a property, because there is an underlying what is your actual location, but nothing looks at that location to do anything with. That's just kind of like its base location. These x and y functions, again, usually just return location, and which I might point out is a float. So we do have precision on where things are moving, so things can move at fractional speeds. But in terms of where are you, how do I interact with you, here's this function. And then lets you do cool things, like you'd have a bullet that travels in a straight line, but as it travels in a straight line, it's wiggling up and down, you know, doing a sine wave. Or, in this case, you could just have something orbit. So it thinks its position is going to be on this one spot on terrain, but as things interact with it and as things draw it and everything else, it's going to be orbiting around in a big circle. And then it could move in addition, right, if we wanted, and that would make things crazy. And you know what? There might be cool uses for that. But for this guy, it's just going to spin in a circle. So this is one way to make things move. I found it useful. This whole object-oriented has dangers and it has wonderful benefits. The danger is that this code becomes a crazy tangled mess and you forget how things are inherited, which is why I did this folder structure, so I can see, and you know, I know in my mind, oh yeah, a bullet is a kind of thing because it has a position, whatever, and you know, that wouldn't be obvious to someone from outside the code, and that's kind of the danger. It is a tangled mess regardless of your system. It's going to be hard for people to understand. You know, there's a lot of magic. You look at a bullet and you're like, well, what does a bullet do? It's like, well, I don't know. What does a thing do? And you're like, oh god, things are huge. Look at all this code. So, yeah, I don't, you know, but I just don't know a better way. And again, the power is fantastic because when I want to make a bullet like this. I mean, this guy's done. Now all I have to do is put them on the level, because everything else is taken care of. It will damage players, and we've overrid this is a live function, and again, there's more magic. How is that used? Someone else coming into the code wouldn't know, but I knew there was something like it. So anyway, let's make this thing appear on a level. So let me think. You know what? I'm just going to make it go on every level at a particular coordinate, and then we'll go and find it. And then I can worry about making levels, place them, more logically. So I think there's an add force field function somewhere. Here we go, add force field. So let's do add fireball sticks. We're going to make a new function. Add fireball sticks. Isn't that what I call it? Okay, so for now, let's just add one. So, I don't know, we'll say num fireball sticks equals 1. Yeah, I'm not even going to do that much. We'll code all this later. So, let's just do x equals, what are you doing? Int x equals, we'll put it at 0, and y equals, I don't know, every block is 16 pixels high, I believe, but is it 32 because of the doubling? That sounds awfully correct, whatever, and we'll put it 20 down. You know what? I have a better idea. Pixel height divided by 2. It'll be halfway down the level. Hopefully we'll be able to see it. Let's put it a quarter way down the level. And then we'll need the length, and that can be random. We'll have it from 1 to... No. It should be at least 4. But let's go up to like 10 for funsies. And then here's what we're going to do. For in I equals 0, I is less than length, I plus plus. We'll do a new spinning fireball on this level at x, y, at a radius of, so each of these is 14 pixels. So we're going to want, first of all, we're going to want I plus 1, because we don't want anything to be 0. Everything is 14 pixels, so let's do like 21. And we'll give it a speed. We'll do speed equals the game, RNG, next. So 360 divided by 60, I ask, because, so 360 degrees, 60 frames a minute. So if I had a speed of 60 frames a second, 60 frames a minute would be a terrible frame rate. It'd be 1 frame a minute, or 1 frame a second. Why do I keep saying minute when I mean second? So if I go a speed of 6, then that means in 1 second, it will have done a complete circle, which is awfully fast. 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. So what's more likely is we're going to want a speed of like 2 through 4. I need to make, did I not make a next natural here? No, I didn't. Sometimes there's, in a lot of, here's what happens. The next function, the minimum value is the minimum value. The maximum value is actually, the random number you get is 1 less than that. And that's fantastic if you have, here's an array of items, new int 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So if I ask for what is A0, sorry, let's do this another way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A0, the 0th element of this array, right, is the first one, is going to be 1, and so the 4th, so the length of this array is 5, but the last element is 4, because you start with 0, right? It's a little bananas. And so for that reason, you would love if you had a random number have a similar sort of thing, because you might say, I want a random number from 0 to, the length of some array. What's its length? And that way, because it's -1 here, you're good. And actually, you would simplify this by doing that. Anyway, but for a lot of other things, you don't want that stupid, -1 that you always got to think about. So I put these +1s because, why not write 11? The reason I'm not writing 11 is because I'm trying to tell myself, no, 10 is the maximum I'm expecting. +1 because computer science. But that's not really, we can kind of ignore that. The point is the 10. I have another function I made for another game called next natural, which I don't know if that's a great name for it, but it's just kind of a wonky thing, right? In a lot of cases you want... It's fine. Don't worry about it. So anyway... the speed then is going to be speed, and then this would be sprite sheet ID fireball, sprite sheet ID enemy fireball. The color would be, let's just do red. We can do more things later. It is not a player bullet, and it will deal 1 damage, and it doesn't have a life. It doesn't have a life because it's a fireball. Fireballs don't get to have a life. And even when it hits a player, I guess we'll just give it a life of 0. Even when it hits a player, it should stay alive, and that's going to kind of be a problem, and we'll work on that. So see, that's an advantage of having it be an enemy, because the game is coded to where if you collide with an enemy, you and that enemy can't deal collision damage to each other again for like a quarter of a second, maybe less than that, just to prevent it so that, because otherwise if you were overlapped for like a quarter second, well, that's 15 frames, you would take 15 hits. That's too much. I'm worried that's what's going to happen here, because usually when when a bullet hits you, it just disappears. So I don't have to worry about doing that kind of, oh, did you collide with it recently? So I'm worried I'm going to have to do with that with the fireball. And that's where you're like, I kind of want it to behave like an enemy in that one regard. There is an interesting thing in some other programming languages. I'm pretty sure C#. I don't know. And I don't remember what it's called in PHP, but that's where I was first introduced to them. Anyway, you can kind of like include partial classes. So, oh God, what's the name of this pattern? It's one that Mysterious Space hasn't used from the beginning, and so there's no way, because it's just one I'm not familiar with, and so I don't think about it much. But it's a way of incorporating many little bits of code, even though they might seem very disparate and require certain properties. So, for example, I might be able to say, oh, I want this thing to have the property of it can't collide with a player super often, like I was just describing for enemies. And that could bring in logic as well, right? So there's a function that does that, and I would like to basically be able to drop that function into any class. And in PHP, there was a way to do that. I don't know about C#. Now that I say it, I can't say that C# doesn't, because I don't know that. But anyways, it's crazy. It's another way of making your code very tangled, and it adds another level of complexity to your code for sure. But again, it's another power. It's another superpower that you have available. So anyway, let's see if this works. This fireball. I think this is going to work out okay. The only other fear I have is that the fireball... No, they don't disappear off screen. So enemies disappear if they're off screen, unless I tell them not to. I've got a boolean that's like, don't do that. Let me put this a little more in the middle. Whoops. What's happening? C#, what are you doing? No one cares about that. Sorry. Okay. So let's see what we got. Ben, sure. Let's play with a new ship. This is a new ship. You have to unlock it. It's very hard. You can't have shields. But it loves batteries, so why not? Not ice. That's too annoying. Let's do desert. Desert is nice and open. So hopefully I can find this fire stick. A quarter of the way down, we said, right? So I think it's going to be at about this level. You know what? I should probably put it at a fixed coordinate and use debugging mode to see my... It's so easy to play. I'm like, oh, I gotta collect those things. Could you map this planet for us? I don't know. Can you tell me where the fireball stick is? I'd really kind of like to find it. It's hard to tell. There it is. Whee! So that's fun. That's really fast. Watch out. Well, might be appropriate on higher levels. Ow. They're going away when they're not supposed to. We'll have to look into that. Stop it. Stop it. Stop shooting at me. I just want to look at things. Bees. So that's pretty exciting. I mean, that partly works except for the whole... Oh, that was convenient. Kill me. Oh, come on, beehive. There we go. So that's working pretty well, except they were going away on collision. They really shouldn't do that. Oh, I should have Alt F4 and I shouldn't have died, because now that 0 scores in my high score table. I'm going to lower the average. Alright, so that worked out pretty well. It was spinning, but, again, it was when colliding with me going away. So there's probably a thing about that. Is live. On creature collision, damage that creature. It's virtual, which is useful, but because I'm almost certainly going to want to override this to do the whole don't collide a whole lot thing, I'm going to, See, now that's code I essentially have to copy paste, and I don't like that. But what made it disappear when it collided with the player? Bullets to remove. That seems inappropriate. Done with bullet equals true. If not done with bullet and it's penetrating, it can go through things. Huh. Yeah, something's wrong here. I don't think collides with bullets. Oh, it's like crates and stuff can remove it. Okay, let's... If on creature collision. If they're overlapping, then if on creature collision. Okay, so I think what should happen here is we should set life to equal 0. That's how we want to kill it. Then we're going to have... Let me think about this. Yeah, that's on creature collision. That's fine. And then we'll have on carryable collision, I guess. So this is kind of weird. And they can collide with crates. All bullets can, which is something I went out of my way to add just for I don't know. Like I thought it was a potentially interesting interaction, right? Because you don't often carry crates. But the thought that you could use a crate to block enemy bullets sounded potentially very interesting. The problem is you can't really stack crates in any way. Like, crates can totally overlap with one another. That's something else I should fix. I should make it so they bump into one another. Because then you could do things like stack them, which would be amazing. And the more physicsy stuff we add like that, the more I'm going to wish I just used Box 2D, but whatever. Anyway, it's kind of weird that it's only for carryables and not for anything. Like, what if I wanted to make a tree that ate up your bullets? But let's not worry about it. Let's, so sorry, this is a player... Oh, and this is only for player bullets. Okay, player bullets I on carryable collision. Fine, collide with that thing. We're also going to want to do that for enemy bullets, though. Yeah. Okay, so that's fine. And enemy bullets, similarly, can collide with carryables. Okay. Whoops. So, virtual public bool on carryable collision. I think that's just a thing. What do you want? Return... Oh, it's not... it's void. Okay, so life equals 0. So most things, when they collide, then they become dead. The bullets. When bullets collide with these things, they become dead, but spinning fireballs will override these and not do any of those things. I'm also going to want fireballs to have a different behavior here entirely, so it won't do that. And we're going to have, like, if last collision, or if, let's say, collision cooldown is greater than, no, is equal 0, then you can do those things. Then you do those things and you return true, else you return false. And then we'll have if collision cooldown. I should probably have defined this property first, but whatever. Collision cooldown minus minus, right? So when you collide, then you get a collision cooldown of what's happening. The game FPS divided by 4. So I don't know what it is for enemies, but we'll try this out. These things move kind of fast anyway. We'll say can't collide with it again for a quarter of a second. Or, yeah, a quarter of a frame. Quarter of a second. Frames per second. A quarter of a frame. You can't have that. That's nonsense. Alright, so private int collision cooldown. Okay, so that's creature collision, and then we also want to override on carryable collision. And we just don't want to do anything. Definitely don't call parent. Don't call super or parent method. I don't know. I don't know. It's a little weird to not call. Again, don't call parent method. It's a little weird to not be calling the parent method. Usually you would when you override something. Like here, yeah, this is the spinning fireballs update, but it needs to do everything that it's inherited from how bullets update, which in turn do everything that, things do. Are they in liquids? Are they being grabbed by players? Whatever. So it's a little weird to not call the parent, but that is absolutely what we want in this case. We do not want to do the parent thing. And that's the times when you're like, this code's getting kind of weird, right? It's fine. So let's try this. And we'll also test out that I only collide once. It's going to put debugging mode so that I know when I'm at the 0th position because I placed the fireball at 0. There it is. So, bam. Oh gosh, but each one of them can hit me, right? Like if I hit this fire stick, you really only want, right? Like if I go through like 5 of them, I don't want. I really think that we don't want the player to be hit by all of the fireballs. Let me think about that. I think what that means we want then is a fire stick class which holds the spinning fireballs and those update. And then because they need some sort of shared property, right? And like I could do something like each fireball could have a list of its, I guess we would say siblings. It's not in the class sense, but just that these are the other fireballs in my group, and whenever I take collision damage and set a collision cooldown, I should set that for all of my fellow fireballs, right, in the stick. But I think it might make a little more sense to group the whole fire stick, because there's also going to be cases. I mean, we're going to want to treat the fire stick as one kind of entity, because if I absolutely want to place them centered on the same sort of like force field. Like the force fields have those 2 metallic thing endpoints, and if you hit one with an EMP, then the whole thing is disabled. I would want to do the same thing here, and so I really want the fire stick to kind of be tied to that as a group, and then if you disable it, then they should all be separate. And I think when you do that, I'll just have them all go flying in random directions, just to be a little more exciting. I guess they should use momentum and just go off in whatever direction they were going. Although that's hard because they don't really have a real velocity. We'll figure out something. We'll worry about that problem when we get to it. Sorry, yawning. It's 1:45. I need to leave in like 15 minutes, but let's see what we can do. Which it was good. It caps this episode, if you want to call this an episode. Why did I use that word? To 15 minutes. This is not the beginning of a series, although that would be interesting. I've thought about programming on Twitch. I don't know how many people would watch or care. I tried it once. I should just start doing it. I should just do it, and the more, if I start doing it regularly, then things will catch on. I would really need a schedule. That was something I wanted to do if the Kickstarter succeeded. It would make a lot more sense then. As it is now, I don't have like a regular schedule where I say I'm working on Mysterious Space because, my regular schedule is taken up by work. After work, I need, I want to hang out with friends or whatever, and it's hard enough to hang out with everyone without being like, no more Wednesdays or whatever day I decided to try and do this on. So anyway, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'll have to think about that. I think for now, just doing YouTube recordings like this is probably the best. That would be interesting to do it on Twitch. I don't fucking know. Whatever. Okay, let's not worry about it. So let's make this Fire Stick kind of group, right? And this is a weird thing. This is absolutely a model thing in the universe. Yeah, let's just do. Okay, we're gonna make this a Fire Stick, I guess we'll call it. Now it's not kind of, yeah, okay, it's a Fire Stick. Where did that go? Here it is. So, right, it's already open, thank you. It'll be public, it'll be serializable, it must be. And because for the saving, I just serialize to whatever, it's fine, don't worry about it. If you know about serialization, it's great. If you don't, it's whatever. It's just a way of storing a bunch of objects in a file or a string or something that you can then rebuild the objects out of, right? Because I mean, we have to save our game. It's weird to think about. It's like, oh, you just save a game. Well, no, you don't just save a game. Like, you got to store all this data somehow, and then, I mean, you've seen this crazy inheritance of classes. How do you rebuild? I can close some of these things. How do you rebuild a fireball when it's also a bullet, which is also a thing, and all those things have their own properties, right? I mean, there's a lot of data to store there, and then you have to rebuild that class somehow. Um, and anyway, so you serialize. It's just a built-in method that cheats, and I don't know, it does things that would be harder to do in your own code. I mean, not necessarily. Um, you would have to go and make constructor, whatever. It'd be a pain in the ass. So we mark as serializable. They're downsides, but the downside is every time I significantly change the classes, the saves are no longer compatible, right? Which is why when I release a new version of Mysterious Space, your saves are probably not going to work, which is why I do it on a scheduled basis, so that you know that your saves will work at least until the end of the month, right? And whenever I have updates that are in the middle of the month, I always make sure that I'm not changing the classes. Like, if it's a quick bug fix, in most cases I don't have to change the class in any significant way that would break your save. But significant is surprisingly small. Adding a new property can be enough. Changing the type of a property, it depends. It's weird. So anyway, what are we talking about? We're in Firesticks. So this is a list of spinning fireballs. These are the fireballs, sure. This is private or public? I guess it's private. Nothing else. Even the fireballs don't need to have access. So yeah, so equals new list of spinning fireball, and then a fire stick is going to have an X and a Y, and it's going to have a length and a speed. I kind of think that the speed should be a float. Yeah, well, yeah, whatever. Let's not worry about it right now. So the thing in the level now where we create the fireballs. Let's find this. Find all references. Right here. This. So we're going to say new fire stick, and we're going to put this on the level X, Y, length, speed. I need to change things a little bit. All right. Yeah, you need to know what level you're on. Public level get private set. Okay, level L. Right, needs to know what level it's on, and then it needs to go and create all the fireballs, which are on the level for sure, so they'll be on level. But they also need to know which fire stick they're on. That will be this, and also fireballs. Add this guy. Okay, so this needs to know what fire stick it's on. And then we're going to have a private fire stick equals fire stick. If you're wondering about these various things, so this is like an old, I see that people still do this, but I learned this like years ago when I was like in high school learning C or whatever. Private things, like I guess it can't have been C, it must have been C++ because C didn't have classes, but private variables, you start with an underscore as a convention. Again, this is like an old convention. I do see some code that does this, but I also see lots of code that doesn't, and I don't think it's really the C# way. Maybe it's still the PHP way, because PHP has lots of funny old standards in it. But anyway, I'm sure it depends on the library. Like, I've never seen, I'm trying to think now, like, I keep wanting to say Angular, and that's not what I want to say. Like Symfony and Laravel, I don't think they do that whole underscore thing for privates. But anyway, so private variables would have an underscore. All the public things are camel cased like this, and then variables for some reason, I don't need. It really doesn't matter as long as you're consistent. And if you're using other libraries, and those libraries are really good, then use the standards that those libraries use, because they probably are using the correct standards. Like if you were using PHP and you're using Composer, and then you got all these funny standards that people are obeying, and then you might as well stick with the naming conventions so you don't confuse yourself. I think I'm using almost nothing here. Where's NuGet? I don't think I'm really using anything except for yeah, I'm using this crash reporter, which I barely interact with, and I'm using monogame, which I don't install with the NuGet because I like to grab the development versions, because sometimes they fix things faster than if you don't. They fix things quickly, and I've found that their in-betweeny builds are stable enough. I haven't had any problems with it, so I sometimes go and grab the latest development version from them and use that in Mysterious Space. So anyway, yeah, I'm not using any other library, so I just use my old silly habits, which, who knows. Anyway, we got an angle, we got a fire stick, it's great, we got a fire stick, it's great. These are all in the fire stick. So what's going to happen now is we want to say if your fire stick collision cooldown is 0, then we're going to do fire stick collide. I'm going to say on collision. I guess we'll call it on creature collision. Why not? And you know what? Let's pass in the creature because you never know. So we'll say if fire stick can collide. Okay, then we'll do the creature collision. And then this, we'll think about that later. So many things to consider. So when do we update that? Because the fire stick, we'll worry about it. The level just has to have a list of fire sticks and update them. That's okay. So let's add these properties now. We have can collide and on creature collision. So we need to move the collision cooldown here. And I think, yeah, collision cooldown. Okay, and then we'll have an update, public void update. If collision cooldown is greater than 0, then collision cooldown minus minus. And then what we're going to have is we're going to have a public, this is really a property, public can collide. That's a bool, sorry. So you can collide if your collision cooldown is 0, right? Otherwise you can't. And then we're also going to have public void on creature collision, creature C. Yeah, I guess we just set the collision cooldown. It's interesting, right? Because you could start to think about maybe the fire stick is the thing that's responsible for dealing the damage rather than the individual fireball. Seems real true, doesn't it? On creature collision. I think what's happening as we do this, and it's okay for code to change, I think what's happening more and more is that we're going to find that the fire stick is the thing that goes on the level, and it just kind of uses the fireballs to draw and check collisions. And we won't be adding, I mean, we're already not adding fireballs to level, right? But it's more and more that this is just kind of like a convenient thing for the fire stick to use, but the fire stick is really the thing that goes on the level, right? Like right now, the fireballs are still the things on the level. We're giving them X and Y positions, their bullets, all this kind of thing. And I'm thinking that more and more, really it's going to be the fire stick on the level. And these won't be bullets. The fire stick will just have its own collision, and that's fine because the bullet thing, as we saw, was kind of wonky. So it's fine. I mean, and you know, that's 100% fine. Your first try doesn't have to be right. That's nonsense. So since when does your first try ever have to be right? So yeah, let's put that here. So can collide on creature collision. That's already yes. And then we need damage for this fire stick. So damage, let's just do new damage, amount is 4. Yeah, but there's like a, yeah, we should do a function because, let's go to the spinning fireball and I'll show you. Bullet true. So this is the damage function, and there's a lot of things that, or there's a damage object that gets passed around. Like when your ship takes damage, it's not just a number that says you took 3 damage. It has to know what kind of damage was it. So we'll have the fire sticks always deal 1. I guess that's fine, just like the force fields. So do they count as bullet or do they count as collision, right? That's important because your shields and your armors have all these things that are like, did you collide with something or or was this bullet damage? And you know, oh, I resist 50% bullet damage. Or when you take collision damage, you gain a shield, or something like that. I think that Firesticks will count as bullet damage in terms of those kinds of mechanics, right? I don't think it's collision. You don't bounce off or anything. So I think it's going to count as bullet damage, even though in no other way, as we just said, fireballs are less and less going to be bullets at all. But I think in terms of mechanics for what kind of damage is it, I think it's bullet damage. Let me see all the properties of damage and make sure I haven't thought it or forgotten anything. Does it penetrate your armor or your shields, right? That's a property that things can have. Is it collision damage? Is it smart bomb damage? Blah, blah, blah. Is it self-inflicted? Because then it has other things. And muted. I think that means you don't, it doesn't make a noise when it collides with you. I think we want these to make a noise. So if you can collide, then your collision cooldown things happen. Yeah, it's fine to use its own can collide property. I mean, we kind of don't need it. What else is going to use it now? But that's fine. All right, spinning fireball. So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you know, it's fine. It's this is handy because any bullet, this is kind of a natural way for the bullets to all say, oh, one of us collided, then you've done a collision, and then, but isn't it kind of awkward then that, like, if you hit 3 fire sticks, even though it's one big object, it's like, oh, you hit this, 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 and this. It's gonna do it over, you know, all 3 times, but only one of them trigger. I mean, that's what we want, but it seems like what we might prefer is just one big object that's literally a line, and then there isn't, you know, you're just checking, did you collide with this line, not did you collide with any of these 4, and you got to collide with each one and learn that you're not colliding anymore, blah, blah, blah. So it's a little weird. But again, I think as I develop this thing, it's going to get refactored and switched up. So I'm kind of glad. You know, it's interesting, and I don't know how often this happens when I start to code something, go, oh, it's kind of weird that it's an enemy, but it's kind of weird it's a bullet, it's kind of like it's its own thing, and then as I've programmed it, it's like, oh, also they're a whole group, and then you're like, yeah, it is its own thing. Again, I don't think there's going to be a bullet in the future, in the near future. You know, I mean, anyway, it's going to get changed, but that's okay. I have to leave soon, but let's see if this works. It's not going to work. So the level adds a new fire stick. Don't we have a new fire stick? Yep. So we need fire sticks, add new fire stick, and we're going to need new property. Sorry, scrolling in a really stupid way. Okay, so protected list fire stick, fire sticks equals new list fire stick. Sure, I can go with fuel positions. Does that make any sense at all? What's down here? Smooth the background, blah, blah, blah. I kind of think, hold on a sec, it's not only planets that can have fire sticks. This needs to be a property of levels. Yeah, this looks more like what I was expecting. Alright, yeah, see? This is what we want. Here's our list of all the things that are on levels. Special effects, the different creatures, you know, pickups, bullets, oh my god. So here's where the fire stick should go. And then on the levels update method, we will update the fire sticks. Fire sticks are basically enemy bullets. Private void update fire stick. For each fire stick, F in fire sticks, F update. Whoa, I didn't want that. Sorry, can't type. Trying to go too fast. F update. Did you see what I just did there? That's why I don't know how my coworkers don't properly indent, because everything I've used always indents for you. Anyway, it's fine. So let's see what happens. So we're updating our fire sticks. When our fire sticks update, the bullets already update themselves. It's a little weird, right? We would probably prefer, it's weird that they're separate. Like, and again, as we code this, the fireballs aren't going to be part of bullets, because right now they have to be part of bullets so that they update themselves, and we kind of do that here. We add this new fireball. Oh, so it's because it's a fireball. So this is a weird thing that I haven't made consistent yet. My newer objects tend to do this thing where when you make a new version of them, they add themselves. So like when you make a bullet, the bullet adds itself to the level, because I never want a bullet anywhere else. But see, I say that, but then sometimes I find cases like you're like, oh, make a new crate. When I make a new crate, obviously that goes on the level that it's on. sometimes that's not true. Sometimes a an outpost is holding onto that crate, and it shouldn't go on the level. So I don't want crates, when they're instantiated, to automatically get added to levels in the same way as bullets. Maybe a similar thing will happen for bullets in the future. And so right now there's kind of a mix of some objects add themselves to level at the moment of instantiation, and some of them don't, and that's kind of a problem. It's inconsistent, which means I'm going to forget, and then weird things are going to happen. Like bugs. Bugs will happen. Update Firesticks. Why not? Update enemy bullet. Update Firesticks. Okay. Someone watching is probably like, he's doing it wrong. I didn't notice because I was rambling. Alright. Let's go into debug modes. We have our coordinates again. 4,000, 3,000. It's possible it would have been faster to go the other way, but I don't know what the width is. Gotta wait for me. No one loves you. Okay, so you see, oh, see 2 damage. That was better. I didn't take like 50, because, well, I wouldn't have anyway, but I only took the 1. Bees! Oh, it's affected by wind! No! Well then, so that's a funny bug to fix. It's a good thing that we heard this. Whoa, my god. Oh, they're picking up speed? Well, that is the most exciting. So, anyway. And see, this is just another thing, because, yeah, I can override this. I can say override vent multiplier. No, 0. You're not pushed by vents. I think there's also, is it wind? Or velocity, drag rate? Yeah, that should be 1. It shouldn't be, well, that doesn't matter anyway. But yeah, no getting pushed by events. That's the moral of the story. There's probably not going to be a, it's probably not going to be a desert. It's a desert! Amazing. Okay. So let's wait for a sandstorm. And see what happens. Good, that's fair. I mean, dude, if you're an idiot and you just, like, run up the length of a fire stick, then you can take 2 damage. Yeah, good. Not pushed, right? Yeah, it's a little weird because that bottom one kind of moves with the, ow. But no, good. It's staying in one place, even though it's in the wind. Ow. Yep. Well, good. So that's what fire. So again, I'm going to want to tie these. I mean, this isn't done yet, right? We're not just going to have one on every level in the same space. I want them to be centered on like one of these things, like we can see down here with the fireball, with the force field, right? I want them on one of these things, and then if you EMP shoot that, then the attached fire stick will go away. And then we can put fire sticks in all kinds of cool places, and we can make them different colors. And oh my god, this wind is strong. Yeah, that's good. That's good. So there you go. You've seen how half of a fire stick is made. I don't want my game to be my score to be added to my save game, so Alt F4 it is. I hope this has been remotely interesting. I know that I rambled a lot, and if you don't know programming, I worry that I said programming things that make no sense. But I hope that this was interesting at all. Please let me know. I mean, it's again just a thing where whenever I see games, I always, because I'm a programmer, I think, ooh, how did they do that? I also really like, this is kind of unrelated again, but in psychology, one of the ways we learn best about how brains work is when they stop working properly. When you get weird things like people who can't, who have no feelings for any of their family members, and so devise these insane conspiracy theories that people have replaced them. I forget what that's called. Like, there's so many good books about crazy things that happen in brains. The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat is, I think, what I was thinking of there. Which is probably separate, mistaking her for a hat. But anyway, and weird things. Anyway, so when brains break is when we find out best how they really work. And I find that in programming that's the same thing too. Like if something breaks, like if you saw the fire sticks get moving in the wind, because I didn't catch that bug, and you're like, whoa, they can be affected by wind, but that must mean that they're kind of similar to enemies or bullets, even though they seem to be a static thing, right? I mean, that kind of tells you about the structure of the game underneath when you see something break. Whereas if that doesn't happen, if that bug doesn't exist, then you'll never know. You can't have those insights. So I just think that's a very interesting thing. There's kind of that parallel and understanding. Anyway, so I love to look at games and wonder. That this is what I was trying to say. I love looking at games and thinking about how they're made. And sometimes you see a bug and you're like, how does that even happen, right? Like in League of Legends, they once fixed a bug where one of the characters dealt more damage depending on what team he was on with this one particular spell, and you're just like, how? How did that happen? How did it matter what team he was on? There's weird things like that, and so sometimes you see the bugs and you don't know. That tells you that something very bizarre is happening, right, in their code, but it doesn't quite tell you what. And I would love to know. And so I assume that there are other people who look at games and want to know how they work. And so I hope that this, sates that curiosity, if it's a curiosity you had. And if it wasn't a curiosity you had, you probably gave up on this video like 10 minutes in. You're probably like, oh my god, this is the most boring thing I've ever seen. And that's fine. This isn't for everyone. It's for the curious, and probably the programmer. Although I don't want it to be for the programmer necessarily, which is why I sometimes explain more than I need to about some things like moduluses and, classes and whatever. Because I would like it to be approachable. I mean, programming is very bizarre. And I don't know. I don't want to say it's hard. There are things that are hard about it, and there are things that aren't. I don't think it should be as scary, maybe, as it is. People look at computers and go, I don't know how it works. It makes no sense. It's beyond me. It doesn't have to be beyond anyone. You can learn this stuff. It just takes time. But at the same time, there is weird stuff that you have to learn, like classes and inheritance and virtual and methods and properties, and there's just like a lot. But again, it's things you can find out one piece at a time. So anyway, so hopefully I am a little educational as well, even if you're not a programmer. Anyway, thank you very much. Can't talk. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you're looking forward to more hazards and dangers in future releases of Mysterious Space. This is, since we talked about it earlier, a game-breaking save, and so I will not be releasing Firesticks until the end of the month, so it's still a ways away. A good 3 weeks, it looks like, at least. Sorry, gosh, my throat's a little something, probably just because I've been talking for so long. Yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you're looking forward to it, and I will not take up any more of your time. Goodbye.